I feel like we should make a disclaimer about the views and opinions expressed in this video. May be controversial. Please
Oh, you're going for controversy in this.
Oh, I mean, how can you not get controversial when you're talking about this? Have you read any of the opinions about some of what conductors think of this?
No, so I just watched it last week. So if you're just joining us, I think we can just start the episode here.
Okay.
Today, this is a Podium Time chat. This is a casual conversation about the movie Tar with myself and Lou.
If you don't know what it is, I don't know how you don't know what it is yet as a conductor, given that it's controversial.
Well, and it's a movie about us. So we're gonna talk about Tar today. We'll start with no spoilers, talking about the movie for a little bit, and then we'll go into spoiler land. And we'll make that clear so you're listening. So Tar, which came out it came out late last year, right?
I want to say it was like October or November.
Yeah, so I don't know about any of the controversy because I was planning to see it in theaters and I didn't end up seeing it. I just watched it last week in January. So I don't know what anybody's been saying about it. All I know is that I've seen the movie. I didn't look at reviews. I just saw, okay, it's got generally good reviews and people are telling me to watch it. So I finally watched it pretty late. When I posted on my story, on my Instagram story, that I was watching Tar, I got more responses than anything I've ever posted on my story ever. I had people being like, oh my God, I want to see it. Oh my God, we got to talk about it. Oh my God, let me know what you think. So, I mean, this is a movie that has sparked some discussion, and I'm sure it'll be an Oscar contender.
It is, yeah, for sure.
No doubt.
I think Kate Blanchett just took the Golden Globe home, pretty sure, for her performance.
I mean, that makes absolute sense.
But
the part was literally written for her. They weren't going to make it if she didn't join.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I did look at a little bit of trivia. They actually she wasn't going to be able to do it. And the director was just like, okay, we're not making the movie then.
Well, can we first talk about the fact that the director of this movie was Todd Phillips? And right, it was Todd Phillips, right?
I'll look it up.
Oh, God.
That sounds so right.
Because it was the director of The Hangover.
Really?
Yeah. Pretty sure. His filmography does not line up with what this film is about. I think that's why it's so interesting.
Todd Field.
He
wrote and directed it.
Wait, so then maybe it wasn't the Hangover guy.
I don't think it was the Hangover guy.
Listen,
you can hear how casual this episode is. I'm not even gonna edit it. I'm just gonna put it on the podcast feed
and make an embarrassment of myself. Well, I used to be really into film, as Jeremy could probably attest, but that's kind of fallen off. All of my knowledge is that stuff's fallen out.
Todd Field has directed Tar, Little Children, Carnival, In the Bedroom, Once and Again, Nani and Alex. Nothing I've heard of.
Okay, so probably it would make that makes more sense because it's a really artistically impressive film. I think just the fact that there's so much discussion about whether it's a good or a bad movie, are
people really saying that this is a bad movie?
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, objectively, even if I weren't a conductor, I'd be like, damn, this was a really well-made, engaging movie. There was one problem I had with it, which we can talk about later. One problem from a this is a film perspective, not a conducting perspective.
The critics obviously really, really liked it, but I think it's only at like a 75% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
Yeah, I know the critics is at 90.
And I think that speaks more to the fact that the film was kind of very niche.
Yeah.
It
was a little difficult to watch, actually. We watched it with the subtitles, and I would have missed a lot if we didn't have the subtitles on. And my wife is a musician. She's not a classical musician anymore, but she used to be. And she was like, if we tried to watch this with her mom, she would have no idea what was going on. It's not like a user-friendly movie, I would say. So let's do a really big overview. Basically, Tar is about Lydia Tar. She's the conductor of the Berlin Phil, basically. And
she's the first woman in that role.
Yeah. It's not based on a real person. A lot of people thought it was. It's kind of, but it's a very like based on a couple general stories. It's kind of a story about power and controversy and obsession. Um, but yeah, it's got a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes critics, 72% audience.
Mm.
Um, it's it really does feel, I think, like a biography film. Like it was very real. And I
I think
know,
that's why I think that's why so many people think that it's based on a real story or that it like actually happened, because it's done in such a way and it utilizes so much real world knowledge in the construction of it
Mhm.
that it very much feels like this could have actually happened and
Yeah,
this could be a real
absolutely.
person.
Yeah, and like I said, it very well might be based on some real things that happened. Um, in a general way. I think maybe we'll save that for the spoilers. I Since I watched it so recently, I don't remember what's gonna be a spoiler and what's not. But yeah, I loved it. It wasn't quite the movie I was expecting, but I really enjoyed it. Uh, that's my one sentence review.
Yeah, because it was one of those things I didn't hear about the movie until it released, and I was, looking up some articles about box office results, and it had done really well in its initial few theater release, and I was like, oh, there's a movie about a conductor. How do I not know about this?
Yeah.
And so when it finally came, I intentionally didn't read much about it or do any research into it. So when I went into it, I was pretty blind, and I was just blown away by how much it did have to say, uh, at least from my point of view.
Hmm.
And but at the same time, how good of a film it was, just in that it does, as you said, you kind of have to go into it with a thinking cap on.
Oh no,
uh,
absolutely.
and it really is kind of like this labyrinth inside the brain of this conductor, and you just
Yeah.
kind of get lost. And
The
it is a wild ride.
Yeah, the structures, and it's in like these 15-minute segments. So there'll be like a 15-minute segment of her talking at Juilliard, a 15-minute segment of her like talking with her assistant. Like it's not like a standard linear story. Like it's not like a movie. It's not like a regular movie. It does feel like a documentary about a person's life. I was told it was kind of like Whiplash, and I wish I had not have heard that because my expectations were very different going in. Um, it's more it's more like watching a documentary about like a really famous person.
Well, I think part of that lends itself to the fact that the film truly is only through the lens of Lydia Tarr,
Yeah.
right? You don't like, the story does not give you a chance to view her from anyone's viewpoint other than her own.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I think that in and of itself is part of what lends the intrigue, because by the end of the movie, you do feel like you know this woman.
Yeah.
And even though everything that has transpired, might leave you out of breath, like at the same time, I was still kind of curious, like, well, what happens now? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of it yeah,
which
it leaves you in a place.
there's going to be more apparently.
Oh, really?
I read a couple days ago that they're doing a short film, and Kate Blanchett's coming back to play Tar, and that this short film is going to be in the Tar universe. So I don't know what that entails. Like, is it going to
Hmm.
be, prequel type? Is it going to be, a little
Yeah.
coda at the end?
Yeah. My first question was, is it before, during, or after this movie? Because let's just say that Lydia Tarr is in a very different place at the beginning and the end of the movie.
It is literally a
Literally,
transformation.
literally and figuratively. Um, oh, you reminded me something I was going to say. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. She is. You said the whole movie is from her perspective, and there are actually some things near the end of the movie where you see her perspective, but you know that that's not actually what's happening. So you're kind of following her as her life starts to fall apart.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good movie.
yeah. It was very 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 good. Um, So probably for conductors, the most fun thing was all the references. I mean, again, turn the subtitles on if you're watching it at home, because so much of it happens so quickly. Like they keep referring to DG through the whole movie, and I just happened to have caught and knew that DG for them stood for Deutsche
Deutsche
Grammophon,
Grammophon.
and like if I hadn't have come in knowing what Deutsche Grammophon is, I wouldn't have been able to keep up with what the hell they were talking about.
Well, and not just that, but like they bring out some really iconic records,
Yeah.
and from the label, and it's just really fun to see like physical. Like, it just ties into that realistic aspect of it. That there's so many tangible things from our real world
Mm-hmm.
utilized in the film to create the authentic environment, I guess you could say, that
Yeah.
someone may expect in the conducting world.
Yeah, and I don't know if normal people will pick up on that, but they did I think they did a really good job of being like if you're a conductor or a classical musician, there are so many references you're going to get. But I think they did a good job of setting up the world for people that don't know this world. Like it opens with her being interviewed for the New Yorker, and in that she kind of explains a lot of things like a conductor would explain to a normal audience, like philosophy of music. And so I think they did a good job setting it up. Just if you're not a musician and you don't have the subtitles on, there are going to be a lot of little references that you miss, so you can even watch it again.
Like, I mean, just getting at things like, right, we're only presented with Lydia Tarr's idea of music.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And Lydia Tarr's experience as a woman going to the podium. And there's also one thing that's probably really controversial is the scene at Juilliard. And this happens pretty early in the movie.
Oh, but
This was my
I have
favorite scene.
felt that scene. I felt that scene.
Yeah, so I mean, there's the whole issue with conductors being white males, and she's a woman who's moved into it. And there's a I don't know. Do you want to describe it?
Hold on.
What?
We need to go. I feel like at this point we need to go and just make our little. There's going to be spoilers.
We're starting very light spoilers, yeah. That's why I'm talking about scenes that are early in the movie. Again, you listeners can see how well prepared we are.
I was going to say, because I have to be careful now because I feel like there's a lot of things that I want to talk about that happen later that I feel like there's just so many. Every scene.
Well, let's just start.
Movie,
Let's say okay, we've talked about it enough. If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Go see it.
go watch it. Because it is a ride, and or keep listening if you don't really care. I wanted to bring up one more thing before we go into spoiler land.
Okay.
I'm gonna wait for my coffee maker to quiet down. Okay, so we're gonna go to Spoiler Town in just a minute, but my coffee maker.
It so sounds loud. Like it's throwing up.
I was waiting for it. I have like a $10 Mr. Coffee from Walmart that I bring between upstairs and downstairs. So the Olga, the cellist in this movie, really cool piece of trivia is that she's a professional cellist who learned how to act from watching Michael Caine tutorials on YouTube. She just auditioned for it. She learned how to act from YouTube videos, and she was very, very good. But she's a professional cellist, and Cate Blanchett did used to play piano, so she plays piano. So there's a scene where the two of them are Lydia Tarr is playing piano and Olga's playing cello to prepare for a concerto, and that's actually the two of them playing the Elgar concerto together for a minute, which is really, really cool. Oh, there's no faking in the movie. There's one character who has to fake, and that's the concertmaster, because that was an actress pretending to play violin. But all the other musicians in the movie were the Dresden Philharmonic, I believe. Actually, she's conducting a real orchestra in all the conducting scenes, which is really, really cool. Okay, now we're gonna go into spoiler land. So pause the podcast or the video.
Go do your homework.
Go do your homework. Go watch the movie. And now we're back. So What spoiler should we talk about?
I mean, I think we should just keep talking about the film. I think, as it progresses, right? So, oh God, there's so much to talk about.
So the big thing is that there's some sexual misconduct, and we don't ever actually find out if it's true or not. But right, her life starts to fall apart as she starts to fall in love, maybe not fall in love, fall in lust with a new person in the orchestra. She makes some bad decisions.
I think it is that she gets cocky, right? Because obviously
I would say she's always been
slept
cocky.
with the concert master and became, right. So one of the things that I took from it, I'm gonna get controversial right away.
Do it.
Right.
That's why we're here. The views expressed in this are not solely the views of the individuals expressing them.
And my views on this, I'm sure in a year or even 6 months might be completely different, because that's part of the joy of living, is that you're always learning and growing. But when I got into conducting, one of the things I realized very quickly was how cutthroat it can be, right? And you have to do whatever it takes to get the audition, do whatever it takes to get that position, right? And I think that's where the orchestra world, especially in the collegiate level, like, we don't associate outside of the orchestra. The band world is so different because it is cutthroat, but it's not nearly like it is in the orchestra, right? And I just have always found that really fascinating. And I feel like there's an element of this whole idea of that she did do whatever she had to do. She slept with the concert master, ultimately wound up marrying her, and then got the position in the orchestra because she played the game and did what she had to do. That's why she didn't love her wife. She loved the child that they had together because the child was hers, but she didn't actually love her wife. It was pretty evident, right? Yep. That her wife was merely a stepping stone to that next conducting goal. And I think a lot of conductors do kind of view people and relationships as a stepping stone to, I have to know this person so I can get to this person, to know this person to get this, right? And so we talk about networking and all this, and there's just a lack of authenticity, I think, to a lot of it, because we're so focused on getting where we want to go that we sometimes lose sight of who we're stepping on and what relationships we may be destroying to get there, right? I think that's one of the themes of the movie, was that, obviously power corrupts, but what are you willing to do, and who are you willing to step on to get where you want to go, right? Lydia was very self-centered, and it was evident in the Juilliard scene, right? Here's a conductor wanting to conduct a 20th century piece of music just composed. It wasn't total, it wasn't beautiful, but he wanted to conduct it. How cool, right? Wow, okay, I don't understand a lot of that music and can't connect with it emotionally, and so I understand that it doesn't spark my interest, but that it sparked his interest is super cool. But Tar was so obsessed with her own ideas of what makes music amazing that she couldn't see that this kid was interested in this. Instead, she proceeds to belittle him, talk about how you don't understand. Let me sit down and tell you about all these people who took Bach and made it their own. That's what music is about. And so then it's like, okay, is it really what music is about? Or is music about people getting together to make something wonderful together? That's what makes music amazing. But Tar is the worst kind of conductor, in my opinion, drunk on the emotions that she experiences when she listens to this music, and is obsessed with making everybody else see, hear, feel, and understand the music how she understands it. And that's why the kid, he doesn't understand. he's like, I do love this music. I don't like Bach. I don't connect with Bach. And she doesn't understand that. So instead of teaching him how to conduct music that he likes, instead she basically just bullies him out of the room. And how many times has even myself brought a piece of music forward that I'm really curious about, only to be shut down, that it's not worth my time. It's not worth my effort because it's not a standard. I can't make that my own. You can't do anything with that. What do you want to be? You just want to be a metronome, right? I think she even made that comment. Well, you're just a metronome. Yes, we are. We as conductors should be nothing more than a metronome and a servant to the music. And our interpretation is important. We need to have something that guides us, but ultimately that interpretation is our own, and we'll never ever be able to make anyone hear music the way we ourselves hear it. It's our job as a conductor to put that aside and present the music in its most authentic form so that we can allow the audience, the other musicians, the ability to create their own experience, right? Create their own Beethoven 5, create their own Mahler 5s, hear it their own way, and simply play the music that Mahler writes. I think that's what's interesting, is that Mahler does dictate a lot. Mahler is like super controlling about everything that he expects. But yet there's still that idea that you can take Mahler and make it your own. That's what she's obsessed with. She's obsessed with making her set of Mahler symphonies. It's not Mahler's anymore. It's hers. And so it's like, yeah, you're robbing the audience of the ability to choose to listen to Mahler's music by forcing them to listen to Lydia Tarr's version of Mahler. So that's one of the things that I took from that whole scene, was that she's so obsessed with conducting music because she feels like she's able to make it her own, that she can't even begin to understand someone wanting to conduct music that is absolutely controlled. And that's the irony of the end, right? Because here she is, the woman who's completely in control of her world, and every decision is her own, being brought down, not only conducting video game music, which we'll get to, but wearing a headset, being told to dictate only the given beats, right? The movie literally stripped her of every ounce of control that she had as a conductor and put her in her place, literally. But what's interesting is that the people in the end of that shot are so freaking thrilled to be there. They're so happy to be sitting there in that auditorium listening to that music that she's conducting. But she's so miserable in her own swamp of powerlessness that she can't understand that she's still bringing joy to people. She's just not in control of it anymore.
Do we see her miserable at the end? I don't remember seeing how she felt about the end. We're supposed to think that she hates it because she's fallen so far. But we don't.
Yeah. She doesn't look like she's enjoying herself. We'll put it that way.
No, but I don't know that she looks like she's enjoying herself at any point in the movie.
Just remember, she's haunted by the entire end is just her being haunted by her past.
Yeah.
Right? She looks through that glass at all of those girls in the massage parlor. And what's the number that looks at her? 5.
In the position of where Olga was sitting in the cellos. Yeah.
And that's why she throws up, because, it's like, it's one of those things. Is she physically sick because of what she's lost? Or is she physically sick because she's finally understanding what it's like, what she's done? there's part of me that, given the nature of how she was acting, how the character herself was portraying herself, it felt like, in my opinion, that it's not that she was unhappy where she was trying to make the best of it, right? She's just trying to act like nothing has gone wrong.
Yeah.
Everything is okay. I am still in
Yeah, I agree
complete
with you there.
control. And then, but then you see that panning shot back of her putting the headset on, and you're like, oh, she's only acting that way because that's the only thing she's in control of anymore.
Yeah. So your analysis was a lot deeper than mine. There are a couple of things I was seeing almost opposite, but um, the difference between her leading the music and acting as a metronome is something that I had not considered in the way that she talks to the student. I would say there's nothing wrong with her bringing Lydia Tarr's Mahler, because when you're at that level, that is what people want. When you're conducting the Berlin Phil and when you're recording a Mahler cycle, they want to hear your Mahler. They don't want to hear they want to hear what Mahler wrote, but I think it's her job at that point to put her stamp on it.
Right. But the thing is, she's not doing it. It was obvious. They made it very obvious, I feel, in the film, that her intentions were simply because she wanted to be like the greats. Right. That's why,
like Bernstein, she wanted to be.
It was the hilarity of the comment that they're taking the picture for her Deutsche Grammophon cover, and she looks at all of them in a row and says, "I want it to be less thought." Or, I want it to look like there's not as much thought put into it. And then proceeds to sit there and cradle this score over this chair with her little pencil.
Doing the same as the Abato.
That's record. The most thought. So here you are, so desperately trying to be different, but yet so blind to the fact that you're exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. I like the revelation.
That goes...
I like the revelation at the end, and I think it went under the radar a little bit, but that she, and maybe it wasn't clear that whether or not she actually did study with Bernstein or whether she just said that she did.
Yeah, because the timelines don't work. They just don't work.
Yeah, at the beginning in the interview, it seems clear that she did work and did study with Bernstein, which made me think that the movie was going to be based on Marin's life. But then at the end of the movie, it implies that she grew up with Bernstein watching the young people's concerts, but that she never actually worked with him. And it wasn't clear. We know that she's not a reliable narrator from the scene when she storms on the stage and tackles the conductor.
Well, I read a really interesting synopsis or breakdown of the film the other day that was like, the last third of the movie, right? Are we actually seeing reality?
Oh, no.
Because if you think about it, everything leading up to her falling down in the courtyard and hitting her head,
yeah,
everything leading up to that was relatively very real. And then from that point on, everything starts to kind of shift into this very ambiguous,
well, even right before she hits her head, it's when Olga gets out of the car and she goes to follow her. Even that scene doesn't seem real,
right? And so they were they were basically saying that apparently she's haunted by the student that she put down, who eventually wound up killing herself. Speaking of Marin, though. Mm-hmm. She actually just the other day commented on the film and really hated it.
Okay.
And I can kind of understand why. As a woman and a lesbian, she was very offended that this is how they chose to portray a woman in this role that women have been so incredibly shut out of.
It implies that the only way to get to power is to be a piece of shit. But so Okay, go on. And then I had something that I disagreed with you about earlier.
Oh, okay.
But what else did Marin say?
Well, she was just basically saying that, it's kind of a disgrace. And I can kind of understand as well. But I think that the director, whoever wrote the story, I think part of why they chose them to be a woman and a lesbian is that, you know, it shows that this idea of being drunk on power isn't just something that men can deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's something that we see very frequently in men. But I think if it were to be a man in the film that this is happening to, we would all just go, well, yeah, obviously, it's a man.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we
we've seen
wouldn't
that
think
in
twice.
real life. And so if
And
you know about all that stuff that happens, it's like the same thing is happening. It's just a woman this time.
but not just that, but I think if there is one person who should be standing up for equality and moving past the status quo, right? I think that's kind of the big picture that I took away from this film, was the fact that Lydia Tarr is still stuck in the past. Literally, figuratively, she is trying to run an orchestra and be a conductor that died 100 years ago. And that she is trying to be the exact thing that she should be fighting against. As a woman and a lesbian, she should be a champion for, the people, a champion for change, a champion for bringing things to the future of this craft. But she's so stuck in the past, as evidenced by, here she is doing this huge recording of all these Mahler symphonies, and then she finds out that it's not going to be on a record. It's a digital release. Oh, what a travesty.
I think
And
that
that
is I
again,
think that is a travesty. I think that's a huge fuck you from Deutsche Grammophon.
but again,
Because then it doesn't it almost doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, it'll be on Spotify, but you can't actually buy it and have a physical copy.
okay, so are you doing all of this so that you can put your physical copy on the wall, or are you doing it to
So
serve the
you so,
music?
so she can have it. Well, I think it's a little bit of both. So what I disagreed with earlier is we don't see any of her rise. She starts at the top of her game. I mean, the whole movie
Right.
is a top to bottom. It's a decline. It's kind of like Requiem for a Dream. It starts with them at a good place and ends with them. It's the opposite of a hero's journey. It begins in heaven, ends in hell. So I'm sure that she stepped on people, but I don't think this movie is about her stepping on and using people for her career. I think it's about using her career to use other people. Like it's entirely her using her power to get what she wants from other people, because she's got everything that she wants in her career now, until things get taken away from her. And so I think that's the whole controversy with the sexual allegations. And again, we never find out what actually happened. We never see her engaging in any actual sexual behavior. We only hear the allegations, and she only suffers from the allegations. And there's a line in the movie where they say that it doesn't matter if it actually happened. The allegation is enough to fuck you. And so I think that's another layer that we don't actually know if it's true. We don't know why. We don't know what past she and the student that killed herself have. We're supposed to think that that she tanked her career because they wouldn't have sex with her. But we can only assume, and we can only imply. But what I was disagreeing with you about is that this movie's not so much about her rise to power and using. I'm sure she used people, but more about her using her power to fuck over other people and try to control the world around her as things spiral out. And we see ultimately how little power she has when her assistant leaves. Right? We see that she can't do anything without her. She can't even get into her house or whatever. I don't remember the details.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the whole, but again, there's the whole, like, and I think it was, it's ironic, and really, that I've heard, we've all heard anecdotes about like, oh, your name doesn't sound like a conductor's name, and it's interesting that they even play that off in the movie where, she winds up, when she's completely broken, winds up going home to, what was it, like Ohio,
Yeah.
something like that. Uh, and her obviously hillbilly Midwest brother comes in, and we find out that her name isn't even Lydia Tarr.
Oh, I didn't
And
catch that.
yeah, her name's like Linda.
I didn't catch that.
And
Yeah,
so
she's
again, it goes back to that, like, oh, congratulations. She figured out there's a game to play, and she did everything she had to do to play the game to get to where she wanted to go, even going as far as to alienate herself from her family, giving up her family name,
Mhm.
in order to be successful in this other world. So I think that scene was kind of put there to show that she has been living a lie
Yep.
since day one. She just now got caught. I mean, look no further than this whole George Santos situation. In today's world, you can lie about anything. You can literally create who you want to be.
Yeah, that's not actually Beethoven. That's just some guy. I'm not cool enough to have Beethoven twice on my wall.
So like, I mean, I understand how women conductors could be really frustrated by the portrayal of them in this film.
Absolutely. Out of context. If they were a prequel movie with a man doing the same thing, it wouldn't be as bad. But it's kind of like there is another movie that really frustrated us recently in a similar way, where it's like they were trying to say that this can happen, but it ended up sending the wrong message. That movie was Smile, or The Smile. I can't remember. It was a horror movie, and I absolutely hated the ending because the message it sent was the opposite of what it should be sending. And I understand that with this, it kind of implies that to rise as a woman, you have to be manipulative, and you have to play the game so hard that you hurt other people. You can play the game without hurting other people. You can play the game without taking it to that extreme.
I think the most important thing is to just be authentic. Like,
Mhm.
know who you are, and I think that's so many people, especially like I know I did as a younger conductor. I probably still do. There's that pressure to always have something new to the table, right? And that you always have to be, in order to be successful, you have to do or be the next big thing and come up with the next big thing. And that's, it's just frustrating. And I think that's, again, like I could be reading too far into it. Just the fact that the conducting profession is so much more than it was 100 years ago.
Mhm.
And you're not going to have the fame and notoriety that those people did, because we don't live in that world anymore. So if you're in conducting because you want to be the next Leonard Bernstein, that's great. Leonard Bernstein did a lot of crazy, innovative things for his time, but that's the emphasis, for his time. We aren't in that time anymore. So putting out a set of Mahler recordings is not going to cut it. I mean, not to toot your horn, but, you do it with the Denver Rock Orchestra. That's really cool. That is so cool. And I know I've told so many people about it, and they'd be like, that I would absolutely go to that. But how many conductors do you know who would look at you and be like, ooh?
A lot.
And it's depressing, the amount of people why do I not go to workshops anymore? Because every workshop I've been to almost has been like a big cockfight of like, who's got the most impressive resume, instead of, we're here to learn from each other and just enjoy music, and then all of a sudden there's all this pressure to like do all this, you have to be amazing. And if you mess up, you see it. and there's just it's rough.
I think
And that's why I think, we need more people like you who are, you're just doing your own thing. Because Jeremy, ever since I met you, you have been a rocker. I mean, you look the part too, and you love it. And here you have taken your craft and you found some other people with similar interests to create something that's interesting and unique and something that only Denver can experience right now. You're bringing something new to the table that, sure, you're not going to get an 85-year-old donor walking through the door, but that's okay because they won't be walking through the door much longer. And then who's going to donate then? I'm just saying, I'm just so sick of hearing conductors complain about the fact that they don't have audiences and they don't have, they don't have funding and they're losing their donors. And it's like, but you haven't done anything but toot your own horn this whole time. And it's not about you.
Yeah.
I speak because I was that person when I first started conducting, I absolutely was that person. And so, you are a great role model for me because it's like, you figured out something that really works for you. And it looks like you're having a blast and you're bringing people together to make music in such a fun and innovative way. And it looks like there's no pressure and it's not a miserable experience. Everyone who is there looks like they're having a blast. And that's what I want to see from this music is people having fun again.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I do have to humble myself a little bit. I did not found the orchestra. I happened to be in the right place at the right time, as a couple other people were putting it together. But I did have I did have the past and experiences to step into the role. So I can't take credit for actually founding it and doing the work, but I can take credit for stepping up, having awesome fucking rehearsals, and making sure that we make really good, fun music with the Denver Orchestra.
You're not treating it like a chore.
No, I love it.
And Tar is a perfect example of that. They like shit on a pops conductor, right?
What's remind me?
I'm pretty sure it was in that conversation, or the assistant conductor, whatever. She was talking to her friend at lunch, the friend who ultimately was conducting Mahler 5, right? And he is, it was guest conducting. He was a guest conductor. And she was like, the guest conductor, blah, 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 horrible job. What? But again, that's a real viewpoint. The idea that if you go and get a doctorate to continue to study music, you are shooting yourself in the foot. And from a professional standpoint, how freaking sad is that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole fucked up world.
But that's what I love so much about this movie, because it literally took all of our laundry and it was like, oh, we're gonna wash all of this today.
So one other thing, before we get too far away from it, I'm glad that you had such strong opinions about the Juilliard scene and that you explained why. Because I love the Juilliard scene, but I was on Tar's side in it. But I had a more simplistic, less complex view. I was seeing it just as, here's a little upstart who's a good musician but is not doing their basics, like. But you saw it as he wants to do the music he wants to do, and that she's stopping him from doing that. I saw it as him doing the music that he thinks is cool. I saw her as the authentic one and him as the inauthentic one in the Juilliard scene. So I was on her side, and I loved that, like, slapping the little snot-nosed brat while she's the real conductor coming in and telling him. So that's how I interpreted the scene, and that's why I loved it so much. I thought that that was a very victorious scene for me. I felt like, yeah, sit down and don't discount Bach because he was a white guy. He can still make great music, and as a conductor, it's part of your job to be able to make that great music if that's what you end up conducting. Because and the other, sorry, before the other thing is that if you're doing a master class, if you're conducting a master class, or if you're gonna conduct in a master class with the music director of the Berlin fucking Phil, I would not bring a metronome piece to that master class. I would bring something where your job as a conductor, not your job as a metronome, matters. That's the other thing. That's the other way. I don't know, I don't know what that was, but I wouldn't bring a contemporary piece. I would bring Beethoven or something like
Okay.
that, or something where the conductor matters more than a metronome.
Can I counter this from a culturally sensitive standpoint?
Yes, and that's the other controversial thing about this scene. I thought they handled it very well though. I thought her response to him, "Do you want to be judged by the orchestra on the same way that you're judging the composers?" I thought that was like a mic drop moment. I thought that was good because he was discounting people just like his people have been discounted in the past. So go ahead.
I think as as a white person and as someone who was really enamored in European classical music and still am, definitely still am, you know, I learned or one of the things I've been exploring a lot in the last few years as I've been just digging through a lot of my own personal trash
Mhm.
is, how much of my upbringing impacts who I am today. And my roots and desires to love and understand European classical music, I feel comes from my religious upbringing and the fact that we spent so much time singing four-part chorales in church, you know? And so the only music I was ever introduced to as a kid was this very structured, very chordal, very clean, precise chorale music. That's all I listened to. So it makes so much sense that when I started listening to classical music and it's all structured the same way, but in such a vastly more radiant way, my brain just went crazy. And that's why I struggled so hard to understand and still do struggle to understand a lot of modern music, right? I have to really put my thinking cap on. But kids these days who are raised, in this world where it's not just what's on the radio that they hear. It's not just what's available in the store. They're gonna be coming, and it's just gonna get worse. They're gonna be coming to music school with a much more modern idea of what music is and what it matters to them. And the more we put so much pressure on a strictly European, Western music idea, the more we repress the idea of other musics, other types of music and other, culturally relevant music in the past, right? How much music from other countries was written during those exact same time frames that we have not even begun to give credit to because we're still just so enamored with our own stuff. And so it's not that it's useless, it's not that it doesn't have value, it's not that there isn't something to learn, but I don't think telling someone that the only way to be a conductor is to appreciate that kind of music. I think it's a mistake.
So I would counter that as a conductor, our job is to conduct an orchestra, and there's so much more music that wasn't written for orchestra, but we don't have access to it unless we go really out of our way. And so, like, our what we do is lead an orchestra, and there's a body of repertoire that's, I mean, I don't believe this 100%, but I'm like learning how to conduct and interpret Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and Tchaikovsky. Like that's kind of, I mean, that's like our scales, that's like our etudes, that's kind of where we learn our chops. And yeah, there was a whole lot more music being written, but it's like if you're a violinist, you play your violin repertoire, and there's other repertoire you can do, but you have to go out of your way. Like there's so much music written for the guitar that you can play as a violinist, but you have to go out of the way from it. So, but I interpreted the scene as him skipping the etudes and wanting to go straight to playing the other stuff. Um,
I mean, I am
and
guilty of not wanting to eat my vegetables. Yes.
yeah, and I understand it's I'm not saying that Tchaikovsky and Beethoven is the only thing we should be playing, but when you're building up when you're the craft of conducting is conducting orchestras, and the skills that you need to conduct orchestras are very often developed in that music. I'm absolutely for playing music that's not them, but pedagogically, the kid saying that he doesn't connect with Bach's music, so he's not even going to play it, is very unprofessional, I think.
Right. But Lydia couldn't connect to that music, so she wasn't going to conduct it.
I think she could, but she was like, if you're a conductor, this is easy. You just step up and beat four and make sure everyone happens at the right time. Like, that's where the metronome can be replaced. That's not conductor conducting. Like, that's traffic cop conducting. And I
Which
think
is what
she
ultimately wound up doing.
yeah. I've been trying to think all week of a way to describe how steep her fall is, and I think I finally figured it's like a Beyonce, like top of the world, like the tippity top, like ended up falling and having to play like in a Beatles cover band, like. I don't know if that's the best analogy, but I was trying to figure out how to explain it to people who don't realize what being music director of the Berlin Phil means. Like, it's as far as you can go. Like, it's going from the very top to the very bottom.
Yeah.
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 It's like an NFL coach being relegated to having to do like Mighty Mites, like middle school, because that's the only job you can get.
Yeah.
And you can do it well. But the other thing is that, the people at the end of the movie showed up in costume. Like, that's the kind of concert that gets them going. And we ignore that too much. I was at rehearsal last night, and somebody was making a sound when somebody else mentioned the Christmas concert that they had just done, and I was like, why are you discounting that? Just because it's not
music.
It's great. It's good music, and that's what people like.
See, but and that's where, like, it's that danger of, like, we're, as conductors, we put such an emphasis on the standards, right, that we forget how unlikely you are to conduct those pieces for a good while after you graduate, right? You're probably going to be conducting pops music for a long time. And all of a sudden, the mindset isn't, I'm conducting. It's, look what I'm not conducting.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough to
there's almost an embarrassment about it. And the embarrassment all just comes from that, why are you doing what you do? Why are you a conductor? Are you a conductor because you want to be popular and liked? Are you a conductor because you love the music and you just want to spend time in it? Are you a conductor because you want to be powerful? Are you a conductor because you want to be a leader? Like, there's so many reasons you could be a conductor. And I think that's ultimately, the reason that you are a conductor will be the reason you succeed or fail.
I'm auditioning for an orchestra right now, and so I'm doing a run of rehearsals and then the concert. And, of course, there's that pressure of like, oh, I got to do a good job. And I've been realizing that the orchestra is also wanting to do a good job. Like, they like me and they're trying to impress me. And I had this mindset shift just last night. And then I had the best rehearsal I've literally ever had in my life. Like, some of the players were like coming around and like saying, thank you. Like, we haven't had a rehearsal like this in years. Not to toot my own horn. I'm sharing what I realized was heading into the rehearsal was not to do a good job as a conductor, because I'm trying to do a good job. They're trying to do a good job. And so I came at it from the mindset of, let's make this music fucking awesome. Like, let's just make the best music we can. And by focusing on the music instead of what I was doing and how I was impressing them and how I was showing them that I'm a good conductor, I mean, that really let me loose to be confident enough to say, no, do it again. Which is my problem. A lot of conductors are too domineering. I'm working on being less passive and demanding more from the orchestra, which is what this group wants. They've told me. So yeah, we need to focus on what we're creating and how it's affecting people more than how we are being and impressing and being great.
Well,
And go ahead.
just in the same like vein of that, like, you know, when I worked with Sedalia, it was like pulling teeth because I was trying to get them to play music that they weren't interested in.
Yeah.
And it was because I wanted to do the music. It wasn't the music that the orchestra needed to do. And I think as conductors, we do ourselves a disservice by not playing music appropriate for our ensembles, but instead doing playing music that's going to make us feel good about what we're doing. And then all of a sudden we get frustrated when the orchestra's not doing a good job, you know, or when they aren't attentive. And it's like, you know, there's that element of knowing where you're at and who your musicians are.
Yeah. I was going to say, whether you're conducting a community orchestra or a professional orchestra makes a big difference on what that motivation is going to be like.
When they're paid to be there.
when they're paid to be there, it's
so
more
much
of a job.
easier.
And it's different. Yeah. Then, you know, but then they're also at a level where they can show up, and even if they're not feeling it, they'll still play well. But even then, I hear musicians complaining about one of the orchestras near here that they're always playing music that's unfamiliar, and it's just too hard. They just want to play a freaking Tchaikovsky symphony so they can have one rehearsal that feels like a break because they know it already, and you know, so you know, there's that morale drops for professionals as well. So
it's
overall,
all balance.
Yeah, it's all balance. But with a community orchestra, I think you want to balance even more to make sure that the orchestra is having a good time and growing because they're there because they want to be there. That's something when I program for community groups, I'm very aware of. And everyone should be. Again, program for the orchestra in front of you, not the orchestra you want to be in front of you. Face reality sometimes, everybody. Be pragmatic. Don't stop being pie in the sky unless you're conducting Berlin Phil. Then you can actually be pie in the sky.
You can do whatever you want.
Do whatever the hell you want. Yeah. Cool. So final thoughts on this movie. What I was a little disappointed with was again, people told me this is like Whiplash. And I get how it is like Whiplash. I loved Whiplash, by the way.
I haven't seen it.
I know that's another controversial opinion. Whiplash is maybe like in my top 10, top 15 movies. It's so fucking intense and it's so good. And so I was actually expecting a bit more of a crescendo. I mean, the climax of the movie is when she runs on stage and tackles the person. And tackles Elliot Kaplan.
Can we talk about that for a second?
What?
When I saw that in the movie, my initial reaction was, God damn, what an entrance to just stand. Because at first I was like, this must be a rehearsal or something. And then he starts playing. And then she starts walking out there with the music.
It's a great shot, just right on her face. Yeah.
Oh, I was like, this is how you walk out to conduct Mahler, and then she throws him off the podium.
And that was
that's where we're going.
And that was all in her imagination because Kaplan wouldn't be the one conducting that concert. She thought that he was trying to. She thought that he stole his score. She thought that he was trying to come up on her professionally, and so I mean that's a point that's entirely false. The orchestra starting because she was hiding in the stall. She's hiding in the stall so that somebody else can start conducting, and then she freaks the fuck out. So the intensity of that moment, Whiplash is like that times like 4 for like 2 hours. I think you would like Whiplash. A lot of musicians don't like it either because they think it's too real or too fake. I think Whiplash, like cinematically, Whiplash, the tension in Whiplash is fucking awesome. So I was expecting this to be a little bit more intense like Whiplash was. It's more of a slow burn to a little bit lighter of a climax than I was expecting. But I mean, it was a fantastic movie. I will have to watch it again. I was quite disappointed with it. The evening that we watched it, we were sitting on the couch like, yeah, it was fine. Didn't blow me away. But as I sit with it more, I like it more, and I'll probably watch it again soon.
I think a lot of it really, it's just one of those films that's so well done that everybody who watches it has some kind of different idea of what it means. And that's good filmmaking, right? Even if you don't like the movie, you still want to talk about it.
Well, like the Juilliard scene, you and I had like literally opposite interpretations of that. I thought Tar was the good guy and you thought she was the bad guy in that scene.
Listen, I only say that because I And again, it's probably like that ADHD side of me that I still struggle with a little bit, like the lack of focus, right? I wanted to conduct and still do. Like I want to find new music that is equally amazing that just hasn't happened to wind up on a list of
Mhm.
some white guy that says it's important, you know? And we're getting there. We're getting there. It's just,
There are 2 dogs
yeah.
off leash in my yard. Where the hell do those dogs come from?
Hey, maybe Daisy
There are
had puppies.
3 dogs off leash in my yard. Who the hell's dogs are those? Weird. I'm sorry. I was so distracted. There's a good Calmus joke also. I actually laughed. I laughed out loud. And Crisera was just sitting there.
Wait, what was the joke?
I don't remember what it was, but it was a joke about shitty Calmus. Or no, somebody who's they said something like somebody who's in love with early 20th century Calmus mini scores. And
Yeah, I
I don't
remember the
remember I don't
Metascore
remember if it
reference.
was I don't remember if it was funny, but like the reference just hit me in that moment, and I actually laughed out loud. And I was like, and like Crisera wasn't laughing at all. She didn't think it was funny. And first, it was such a specific reference that it just tickled me in the right way.
Yeah. As soon as I heard that, I was like, "Oh, I have some of those."
Yeah, it was something like he's got a fetish for mid 20th century Calmus mini scores or something. I don't remember. There was also some interesting politics with the old director of the Berlin Phil who she paid for his shuttle service. And again, she was playing the game. She wanted him to feel that he was worthwhile, but that was an actual act of generosity, right? Because the Berlin Phil had the halls and all the things for all the conductors, but the conductor that was just before her was kind of forgotten about, and so she paid for. She told him that the Berlin Phil was paying for this car to drive him everywhere, but actually it was her, and nobody knew that it was her. That
That's
was like an
true.
actual thing for him without any gain for her.
But again, maybe that's a reference to like, the fact that somewhere in her is a good person, right?
Yeah.
It's just so buried under her desire to do what she wants, and be this new person. Maybe that, yeah, I forgot about that, but that's interesting.
Well, and she. I mean, we talked about she loves her daughter. Um, with the scene where she threatens the kid. I was like, Jesus Christ, that's what kind of the movie this is going to be. 20 minutes in, where she threatens to beat up a kid and says, if you tell anybody, they're not going to believe you because I'm an adult. Like that's just again, it's her power, but in such a different context. She's not trading sexual favors for it. But what are you looking at? I can't hear you. Oh no, I think maybe that's our cue to end the episode. This review is almost as long as the movie itself. And Luke is frozen. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks for joining us today.